Joining us, and thank you very much for sticking around to UBC, your national broadcaster. This week is the census week, and just to quickly remind you that 9th of May was designated as the census night, and 10th May is a public holiday. So this Friday you should stay home and participate in the population census. 10 years down the road since we last held a population census in Uganda, the last was in 2014. So the current one is also coming along this week. You should be prepared as a Ugandan citizen to abide by the law that supports the census. And speaking of the law, the conversation we are going to be having this morning is looking strictly into the legalities of the Uganda population census 2024. My guest this morning is a lawyer, and of course he's going to be taking us into that direction of the law and why you should be part of the, or why you should participate in the population census. The lawyer I'm talking about in studio this morning is Terry Kahuma, who joins us here on Good Morning Uganda Extra. Good morning, sir, and many thanks for joining us.
Good morning to Mr. Sonko, and good morning everyone on tuning in right now to UBC TV. It's always a pleasure to be back. This is basically my home now.
Okay,
yes.
And the pleasure is ours having you here. And of course, when it comes to you accepting our invite, it's always a pleasure again. Looking into the situation of the population census 2024, we are in the week of that. Just a simple background, if you may. How far have we come in regards to the population census? How many have we had over the years from the Ugandan side?
Okay, so we have had about 10 population censuses.
Okay.
At least I know dating. Sorry, my throat was a bit dry. So dating back to 1911, okay. That is when, of course, the British,
the colonial government was still in.
So of course, by that time, the population of Uganda was still quite small, and the boundaries of the different countries had been established by that time, but it was still a bit new. So they needed to know which particular people belong to Uganda, which people belong to Kenya, which people belong to Rwanda. So they wanted to clearly define the actual population that was in Uganda.
Okay.
Then we moved on. So if you notice, most population censuses are in a space of 10 years. Yes. So from 1911 to 1921, that was the next population census. Then we moved to about 1930. That was the next population census. So then about 1948. So they keep moving in spaces of 10, or at least maybe like 10 to 11 years, about there. There were,
it depends on, of course, issues, why they extend.
There were those missing gaps, and most of them, if we now move fast way forward to the post-colonial period.
Okay.
That
after
was
independence.
After independence. Of course, you know, we had a bit of turmoil and turbulence in our political arena. The government of Obote, the government of Amin. So especially when it came to the population census of 1970 to around 1980. In fact, it was 1969 to 1980. So in the mid of the 20th century, that was 1969. That one I think was a bit peaceful. That was in Obote's time. But then
during the Amin era.
From 1971 to 1979. Of course, the census could not have been carried out properly because of mass killings and
the political instability, really.
Yes. So most of the data by about 1980 was distorted because so many people were killed, and because of our political instability, we couldn't have it properly done. So the next 10 years, which was in 1991, was the one which was a bit stable. Of course, that was with the insurgents of the NRM government, which successfully has conducted all of these different population census up to 2002,
then 2014,
and then we now have the current one.
Well, and also when you look back at this current one that we're having, we were likely to have it last year, but because of a little bit of the financial stretch here and there, the Ministry of Finance had to re-forward to the Uganda Bureau of Statistics to reschedule to May this very year that we are in. And the chances are, we are at least 99% sure that we shall have the population census this very year. So you should endeavor to participate. But speaking of participation of the Ugandans, if you are to, first of all, take us into the legal backing of the population census, because as of today, many Ugandans would wonder, why is it important for me to be counted after all? And is it mandatory for me to participate? Which is a very critical question.
Okay, I'll first start, even before I go into the legalities.
Okay.
I'll first start with the mandates of the different bodies which are
responsible for this.
Yes. So if we look at the different, every particular, it's like a country is like a body, it's like a body of a human being. The fingers have roles, the hands have roles, the eyes.
Yes.
So the same way our different body parts come up to make a holistic human being. That is how the different statutory bodies make a country. So when you look at the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, most people confuse Uganda National Bureau of Standards with Uganda Bureau of Statistics.
True.
So Uganda Bureau of Statistics is mandated to be able to make sure that the statistics of the birth rates, the death rates, the current population, generally statistics everywhere in Uganda.
Monetary, everything.
Monitoring, making sure that people are getting certificates of birth, of death, things like that. So this population census is mostly, or it's fully given to Uganda Bureau of Statistics. Within the Act, it's given that mandate to carry out every population census every 10 years or every period for which the government so wishes to have the population census done.
Okay.
Now, to come to your question, must the Ugandan be required to participate in that?
Yes.
Yes. First of all, I'll come to Section 16.
Okay.
Section 16 of the Uganda Bureau of Statistics Act. It basically gives any officer who is authorized by government, or any officer who is an officer of Uganda Bureau of Statistics, mandate to be able to collect the data, the statistics, the particulars, and basically any sort of information that will be able to help out the population census, and also the Uganda Bureau of Statistics to be able to know, are we 45 million Ugandans, are we 48 million, are we now 50? So that population census helps us to establish such relevant information to the government to be able to plan better for the people. Then I think I'll also move to the offenses, or should I state them now?
Let's look into the offenses as well.
Yes. So now that Section 16 of the Uganda Bureau of Statistics Act gives mandate of all officers of Uganda Bureau of Statistics mandate to obtain and collect data of Ugandans. Okay. Therefore, according to Section 28, still of that same Act, in particular subsection 3, it states that any particular individual is mandated to participate in that population census, meaning it's a must, it's mandatory. And it's a good mandatory because it helps the government to be able to know everything that's happening around, because you cannot control a population, you cannot be able to govern people properly if you don't know how many they are. It's like a father being a head of a family. You can't be there and you don't know how many children you have.
Yes.
So therefore, the father of that house must be able to enforce that mandatory kind of process. Now, Section 28 says that if you do not participate in that, if you knowingly withhold that information from the officers who are authorized by UBOS, and also any person who is given mandate to obtain that information, then that person goes to jail for about 6 months. Wow. So meaning that you are, in other words, according to the law, if you do not participate in the census, then you're going to go to jail for 6 months. If it's then shown that you intentionally did not go for the census.
Well, and of course, even in our press review this morning, with the Daily Monitor highlighting and putting it well, that 6 months is what you will face for not participating or for not abiding by the law. That backs the Uganda Bureau of Statistics to count to count the Ugandans, or to carry on with the exercise of the population census. So it is something that we really need to be part of. That is why the government actually designated the day as a public holiday. So many of you in the working environment, so in the formal sector, are pretty excited about the fact that you will have a 3-day holiday back home. But the reason behind it is because you have to be counted. But Council, as we look into the benefits of population, Ugandans today are very curious when it comes to government initiatives or programs, even when they know that these are programs that are put and designed for them. What are some of the benefits behind the population? If you are to look through, and of what importance is it to have this population census coming in?
Okay, without even thinking too much,
yes.
First of all, we need to look at things like better planning services. The government needs to be able to know that, okay, if we have a forecast, if we have a vision 2040, like our dear president has always said, if we have a vision 2040, then we need to be able to know how many people are in this particular country. We need to be able to plan for, like, let's say 30 to 20 years to come. So that's number one in terms of planning. Number two, it helps the government to be able to plan for, let's say, housing of the different people in the country. So if let's say the Vision 2040 has it that we want people to be a we want Uganda to be a middle income country by 2040, then we need to have it aligned that if we have 50 million people in Uganda, then we can be able to construct national housing services, like let's say condominium services, let's say different apartment buildings which are constructed by government. It can be able to help in terms of national housing or national planning. Then when you look at things like knowing the health statuses of different people, it is able to, through the population census, we're able to know things like how many people are in Mulago Hospital, how many of those are cancer patients, how many of those are HIV patients, yes. How many people are sick with, let's say, diabetes. Then from there we can be able to know how many or how much drug or pharmaceutical business do we need in Uganda. Then it helps the government to plan better. Yes.
Well, and of course, as we talk about helping the government to plan better, I want to believe that if you want to also create room for accountability of the taxes that you pay for, it is always better that at least you engage in these government initiatives and the benefits, that come with it. Because at the end of the day, after being counted, well, we shall sit back and see how is the government going to plan for us in the long run. If you're to look at also the levels of, population census and the like, we are going to be sharing information. Do we at any given point have certain information that we're not supposed to share with the government, or it is a mandate that we share all our information with the government?
Well, I doubt the government would need everyone's personal information because, much as the Uganda Bureau of Statistics Act empowers Uganda Bureau of Statistics to be able to collect people's data. Still, the data they're collecting should not also infringe on someone's right to privacy. Yes, and we have the right to privacy enshrined under the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. So that right to privacy should not be infringed on vis-a-vis the mandate that is given by the UBOS Act. Okay. So the information that the government is going to need is just basic information. Who are you? What is your tribe? What are your 3 names? Just like the National ID Project. Who are you? What are your full names? Where were you born? What's your village? But it will not necessarily come and ask what is your Facebook password or Instagram password or bank account details.
Do we have any sort of disadvantage attached to the census in any way, if you're to look at it?
I don't think so.
Oh.
I think every country, especially before election time, ordinarily most countries tend to carry out population censuses. I saw recently the United States did it, and remember for them it's even on a larger scale. They have 50 states to be able to. So they have to collect data of all those people. And luckily for them it's more electronic. So they have a mass kind of population census. And I think it just comes to the benefit of the people, because if we know how many people we are, then we know how many people have died, how many people are immigrants, how many people are being born on a daily basis. Yes, how many people are sick, that kind of thing. How many children are in school? Yes.
When it comes to the participation bit of it, because now what we are currently doing is also giving the Ugandans the need to be part of, this census. If you are to, give advice to a Ugandan, or if you are to, to create room for awareness of a Ugandan to be part of the population census this year, what would be the message that you would give to anyone?
I would give the basic or the average Ugandan, or any government or any Ugandan in general, that all these programs that are given to us by government are actually to our benefit. It's not just Uganda alone, it's the world in general. Every country, every republic does this. So I would encourage the average Ugandan to embrace this kind of change, because definitely in between 2014 and 2024, there has been a very huge change. So many changes have taken place in the space of 10 years, and I think we ought to embrace change. We ought to also be accountable for the kind of information that we hold, the kind of person that we are in this country. So I would give the average Ugandan advice that, it's always good to embrace these government programs. They're to our benefit. They're not our detriment, and all in all, they're here to promote our country moving forward.
Well, and of course, to any Ugandan out there, I don't know, is there any way a Ugandan can be backed just in case, you know, they give wrong information? Or it's something that we you know, at times many Ugandans, especially those who don't want to participate, end up giving wrong information to the government. And of course, you're going to face the law afterwards, or for not participating. Is there a way someone is backed by any sort of law in such circumstances?
Well, what I would say is that, number one, ignorance of the law is no defense.
Okay.
And the government has continuously sensitized people. This population census is not a new thing. Most people who are, let's say, 40 and above, they have undergone like 3 or 4 population censuses since they were born. So they have also passed on that information to the lower generations. So it's not something that is new. So that's number one. Number two is that if you are misleading Uganda Bureau of Statistics, which is a representative of government, to be able to attain and obtain this information on the population census, then that means that you are obstructing the law.
Okay.
That means that you are not participating. That means that you are going ultra vires. I'll not use such a term, but you are going contradictory to what the government has planned for the people, because they see this as a benefit. Yes.
All right. And of course, looking back in 2014, I don't know what you was doing during that time. You are, dear viewer, but if you're to throw it back into the basket 10 years down the road, we have another census here. The enumerators are likely to ask you over 100 questions according to details that we do have so far. But of course, along the week here on Good Morning Uganda, we shall also have an official from the Uganda Bureau of Statistics to understand and to also bring to us how the exercise is going to be done, how are they going to implement it, and of course, how many enumerators do they have on ground, how many have they trained so far to ensure that this particular exercise becomes a success this year. Remember, I did mention that 9th will be the census night, and of course that is to prepare you for what is what is bound to happen on the 10th, where all of you are highly expected to be at home as the counting will be ongoing. But of course, I'm here with Council Kahuma as we are trying to understand the legal side of things, or what is backing the population census, and why is it important for us to participate in the law. One of which is if you do not participate, the chances are you may face imprisonment of up to 6 months. So I don't know how you will be ready for that in case you don't take part in a population census. So I wouldn't wish it for anyone. So we have to make sure that we participate and be part of the population census. And of course, some of the other issues that have been highlighted by Council is that when you look at the benefits, it gives us chance for better accountability and better planning as the country. And so at least the government knows I'm planning for this person and I'm planning for this and how things are supposed to be done. But besides that, Council, the population census is here. And of course, finally, it is also here. Looking at it from the perspective of us Ugandans, of what do we learn really from this? Because this is something that is also a huge turning point for our country. Besides the fact that it happens once after 10 years or 11, depending on, of course, issues around, what do we learn from such an exercise?
I think the average Ugandan, or Ugandans everywhere in general, need to learn that from this population census, we learn to be more of a Ugandan. Okay. It's not just being born in Uganda or having a name that belongs to Uganda or being of any tribe in Uganda. We learn to be a Ugandan. We learn to embrace our country. And why am I saying this? We learn because it helps us to embrace whatever is happening in our country. To be able to know that these programs that are organized, these policies that are put up, even if it's once every 100 years or once every decade, it's important for us to know that these censuses are there to help us. They're there for us to learn what is in our country. How many people are there? How many tribes are there? How often is this done? What is the importance? How many children are in school? How many are in UPE? So it helps us to learn all of these national concepts, national information, and then it can breed up even more and more intellectual people who can be able to discuss things on a more national level.
Now, this question is going direct to you. As a Ugandan, what are your expectations after, the census is done? Because after this, we expect lots of things, because this is not an exercise that is just to go by, that the government is done counting people and that's it. What are your expectations along the way?
My expectations are that now that the census is going to be done, it is going to help the country, the government and the country at large in better planning services. When revenue and taxes are collected, then we will not just move like if we fight
will be leaving you as of now. But before that, Councillor Kahuma is still here with me. And I want to hear something from his parting shots. As we're winding up with our conversation, what are some of those things that you feel Ugandans should know as we are to the census? And of course, what message do you send to fellow colleagues in the same route of the law?
Okay, to my fellow Ugandans, first of all, thank you for hosting me on the national air. UBC will always be my home. Okay. And I always love being on the Good Morning Show Extra. Now, to Ugandans going for the population census, please take heed of what we have discussed in this particular video segment. Please know that the Uganda Bureau of Standards or Uganda Bureau of Statistics is mandated to be able to collect and obtain your data and information to be able to carry out this census and to provide the best services for people possible. So please come Friday, please stay at home, please be compliant with what the government is trying to implement. I mean, this census will not take even more than, let's say, 10 minutes to 1 hour, and that's just 1 hour out of the 24 hours moving forward. So this is just to help out the government in terms of implementation and sensitization, that we need to know what is happening all over the globe, all over the country. We need to know how big we are as a country, what number of people do we have in different sectors, and how the government can be able to serve you better in terms of implementing the revenue that the government collects from us. And also, I have a YouTube channel called Simply Legal by Terry Kahuma, which simplifies the law for people creatively, offering so many insights on different legal aspects which make people's lives much easier. I also have a legal mobile app which connects people and lawyers together, called Farmeron. Farmeron connects people and lawyers together, making accessibility to services very easy for people at a very
because I was almost asking you if how accessible are you for the services that you can offer to any Ugandan out there, especially when it comes to someone having issues in regards to law cases and all that. How can they easily access you?
Well, our profession is a bit lawyers are not supposed to advertise. At least use a service. I'm always easily accessible. So many people have engaged with me on my different social media platforms.
And of course, when it matters law, we shall surely be engaging with Council Kahuma pretty much often here on Good Morning Uganda Extra. But that aside, remember that our conversation has been rotating around the legalities behind the Uganda Population Census 2024. And of course, you get to realize that it's something that you fully need to be part of, or you need to participate in as a Ugandan. 9th of May will be census night. And just to remind you, 10th of May should find you in your premises back home as you enable the government to, to deal with this kind of exercise diligently and effectively well. The enumerators have some equipment, enhanced technology this time around. It's not all about the pen and paper that we are used to 10 years back. At least some innovations have been, upheld, and so that is something that we should be grateful for. But the exercise can only continue if at all we participate and be part of this move. And of course, here on Good Morning Uganda, we continue to advise you and also encourage you to take part of the population census. My guest this morning has been Terry Kahuma, a lawyer, and of course someone who has been here giving us a little bit of the advice and legal, and the legal know-how of how to go through the census and why it is important to be part of it. I am Joram Paul Sonko. Till tomorrow, have yourselves a good day, but stick around to your national broadcaster because more is yet to come, including more of the live events coming along. Good morning.